Hello, I'm Suzie Minahan, and this is Talk Cosmos, March 14th, the day after the new moon in Pisces, and quite an energy experiencing as we have this conjunction with the sun, the moon, not the moon, well, yes, the sun, the moon, Venus, and Neptune, all collected and squaring our nodal system, a very mutable experience, which I'm sure many of us are aware of. But yet today, the moon just shifted into Aries. So it's quite a world, and our conversation today with our panel will be imagining possibilities, because we're transcending between the known and the unknown. And now that's part of Pisces in one sense, perhaps, but particularly now with this mutable experience and the connection between these really planets of magnitude. Neptune has been in Pisces, the planet of forces beyond our control and the wholeness, since was a 13-year cycle, and it ends in 2026. So we're in the heart of it still. So imagining possibilities fathoms vast psychic intuitiveness. It's inherent in all of us as humans. And so we're going to move between dreams and visioning, and now it's time for cosmic collaboration.
Investigating the deeper archetypal questions related to understanding astrological energetic aspects for growth patterns to unify mind, body, spirit, and emotions, this is your Cosmic Collaboration Panel.
I'm Suzie Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Suzie Kerr, Wright, astrologer, certified psychic medium, tarot reader, life coach, and Reiki master. I love to bring what I call cosmic common sense to the world through private sessions as well as all types of media. My work has been published in Chewy.com, Brides Magazine, Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan, Elle, Bustle, and more. And I'm a regular guest on Today in Nashville. I've had my own radio shows, and I was the weekly on-air astrologer for WSCA-FM. And I love to teach astrology and psychic development.
And I'm Amanda Pierce, a soul-centered astrologer, astrological consultant, and empowerment-based meditation teacher. I have a BA in psychology, I'm a wellness enthusiast with a passion for healthy eating, and I enjoy creating new realities and shifting old paradigms.
And like the Sufi poet Rumi says,
You are the entire ocean in a drop.
Well, here we are. And as many might notice, it is a new world we're moving into. We have Suzie Kerr Wright from Tennessee with us, Nashville, Tennessee, along with Amanda Pierce and myself, as is noticed. And Shannon, who's been with us, Shannon Hayes, has obligations that are taking her away from Sundays. And who knows, maybe one day will change and she'll be back. So it will be a foursome. But right now we're powering ahead. And you've noticed both Suzie and Amanda have been on many other shows with us. So if you go to Talk Cosmos, you can find out about each one. So today we're talking about possibilities, impossibilities. We're talking about shifting through the drops of chaos into directions that go forward. And that's how I'm going to start my little tag for what is meaningful in this conversation. So Suzie, what would you want to share?
Well, just kind of along the same lines, really. I'm fascinated with this, the mutable exchange that we're having now, with going from this very heavy Capricornian, overthrow kind of energy, digging deep and mucking around in the depths, to air. Like we're going into air, and it's light and it's breezy, and there's so many other things that are going on, and so right now we're in that middle part where where the old ways don't work anymore, but the new ways haven't really been consciously or unconsciously, subconsciously ingrained in us yet. So we know we're going, we keep going, but we just don't know what that's going to look like, and how to feel our way into it. So it's just all about feeling right now in this period of time.
That is so water, such as Pisces, and the experience. Yes. And Amanda, how would you like to kick off this conversation?
Well, in looking at the current energies we are in today, I'd love to talk about the principle of yang follows yin. And this is because Venus is in such a lovely, exalted placement in Pisces. And so there's a lot of ability for creativity, artistry going inward, becoming more yin, and allowing that, allowing yourself to go deeply yin now, which will allow the yang principle of Mars to more easily find connections and what you want to birth in the coming spring.
Ooh, thank you, Amanda. Now, all of this really is, if I could just think of the words sometimes, I'm thinking of this big pot, right? And at any rate, it's burbling in there. It's percolating, because
percolating, that's a good word.
Yeah, percolating. Yeah. Okay, because we really are. Maybe we can expand. Let's expand with this yin yang. That's a good arrow to go forward as we're. The moon is in Aries. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's in traditional Chinese medicine, there's a book on meridians that talks about how disease starts in the yin meridian channels, and you must address those deficiency in the yin channels before the yang channels can be addressed. And when you do address the yin channels, the yang channels just tend to naturally follow suit, and they naturally tend to balance themselves out. And so this kind of really reflects that principle that yang follows yin, and that everything starts from within ourselves, and then it manifests forward and out and externally. So it's kind of like the law of attraction, really. And yeah. And go ahead.
You had more to say. I can hear it. I had some thoughts, but go ahead. Yes.
No, go ahead, because I want to think about where I want to go with that.
Very good. Very good. Because instantly I think of yin is receptive. Yang is assertive. There's so many ways that we describe and translate energetic terms, depending on cultures and just depending on thought, to expand them and to also focus it. So really, whether it's Kabbalah, it won't go into all these possible thought definitions, but this is so important, because how we feel, back to what Suzie, kind of tying in both of these thoughts, is so important. They say that manifestation, that law of attraction that was so current, within the last 10 years, kind of swept the wave across the popular consciousness, is that it's not just a thought, it's how we feel. Feel. So it's what we're receiving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it comes from the unconscious, and that's why, it's like often I get pushback when I post a lot of, positive memes and things, and I get pushback on some of them, like that's victim blaming, or that's, this or that, and it has nothing, it's not that at all. It's just, there's a deeper understanding of it that a lot of people don't have. And it's actually, when I realized that I was not, it's not about blaming somebody because they attracted something they didn't want. It's not a blame thing. It's understanding why that happened. And that's where the power comes, is when you really understand. It's extremely empowering, but you just have to kind of understand the entirety of it, that it's an unconscious motivation, I guess you might want to say, or I don't know what the word would be.
Unconscious is good, because awareness is through it all. Yes, Amanda.
I just think that's such an important thing to bring up, because I see that a lot too. And it's easy to fall into feeling like, oh, it's my fault because I attracted this. But really, it's just all about, I mean, we're all doing it to some degree. Nobody's any better or worse at this. It's just a matter of taking ownership of that you are co-creating with the universe.
And that's exciting.
It's so exciting when you can like really get into that. Yeah. And then you can really guide your life with much more ease.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was thinking myself all these archetypal thoughts, because yes, the Piscean energy is the last sign. Neptune is the last planet. Of course, there is Pluto, which of course we revere, and Pluto, just to diverge a little bit here, is in my own thinking now, because it's been classified a dwarf planet, but it actually has a tremendous transformational connection with all the other dwarf planets. Alan Clay is, among other astrologers, teaching about these energies. So it's really as though Pluto, in its reclassification, in some ways has just been attached to even greater transformational powers, because they delineate how and expand that whole energy. So going back to Neptune, in one ways, Neptune is the last or towards the end of the solar system. And we look at, okay, I mean, I'm trying to thread myself back into this because I could go into all these details, but really how planets, their characteristics and where they are in some ways, not just some ways, but very literally gets involved with how we understand the force, the involvement of their energy. So that's why I'm going into that whole thought pattern, because when I'm going back to the archetypal thoughts that I'm hearing, okay, the Neptune Piscean is out of our control, incorporating the whole womb of existence. But inside of that existence, of course, is Saturn taking ownership. And again, we can become, I think Saturn is one of the planets that can, even without being in Virgo, which mine happens to be in, I think it can tend to say not enough. So this is really important to bring up that it's not one's error. It's just an unconsciousness that needs awareness to tie all this in together, if I am, and that taking ownership, one then therefore has ability to kind of peekaboo inside of themselves and go like, oh, hey, I was unaware of, I felt like that,
Yeah, and when you're able to take ownership, or in Saturn's words, like be your own authority, then you get to direct things instead of it happening to you and you not directing your life. So that's the I mean, people give Saturn a bad rap, but it's like really just about taking charge of your life.
Well, it is, except we got to go back. Yes, that's good. And then I'll let go of this. But the fact is we're in Pisces right now. And really, it is that, I think, very similar to the alcoholic thing of their adage that says, know what you can control, know what you can't, know the difference. Because not everything. Sometimes taking control is surrendering or just allowing
and
accepting.
So can I read something out of this book? I found this is so relevant right now. So I had this fantastic, it's this tiny little book about Neptune that is so good. But there's this little piece in here that just jumped out at me today. And I thought this would be perfect to share. It says, the effects of Neptune can be very maligned by our Western society when it comes to Neptune's effects, we're still like the primitive child who fears the dark. And if you think about it, we've been taught that daydreaming is a waste of time. Hearing voices and seeing visions is insanity. It's only your imagination. Dreams are only dreams. Logic is superior to intuition. That's a great Saturn, Neptune kind of, dilemma going back and forth.
Yeah.
And it says, fortunately for us, the world's greatest composers, musicians, scientists, artists, and inventors didn't pay too close attention to these admonitions. And, the
That's
dreamers.
beautiful.
So this, I know, I love that. Oh, there's so much.
And
more.
the author again?
The author is Patricia Morimondo. This is an older book. I love the older astrology.
ABE has a lot of old books. Yes, it is really, but that's where creativity, I know in our pre-chat, we always have a pre-chat, that the creative, and I think, Amanda, that was one of the...
One of the things it's so great that we're talking about this now because Venus is in Pisces and it's exalted in Pisces. It's in a very strong placement. And so there is more space for us to really tune into that, the compassion, the love, the creativity, the artistry, the imagination, receptivity, all of that that's available to us now. And yesterday, even Venus just conjuncted Neptune. So it's even more Piscean right now, and even more of that ability to really tap into the unknown and what is available to us through Source's energy.
And like you said, the yin follows yang, and so this is that intense yin, or not intense, is not a word, that ethereal yin period, right? And what's coming is the yang. And it's like, if we just stay in this, imagine the possibilities of all of the things that we can create going forward, things that we never dreamed possible, in our own lives. I mean, it's just... we're in an amazing period of time right now. And it's easy to take that for granted because we've been sort of beat up over this last year or so. And there's been a lot of wanting to give up or feeling like you're struggling against the tides, but this really is a brilliant period of time to be, looking forward to things that you can't even imagine. It's, I always say, like, don't get too married to the idea of what you can create, because you're probably gonna undersell yourself. You're probably gonna short yourself, because the greater things can happen. Every time I said intentions, I always end them with all this or something better.
Perhaps, yes, and really remembering how to feel about it, because I know that with manifestation class, took one with Dougal Fraser, and it was like, okay, you go through a process where you dream huge, and then you come up with how that feeling was to choose a small step, because you're right, that's part of this process that we're transiting between. We knew what the known looked like, how it felt, how it operated. But the unknown ahead of us is like it's challenging on a personal basis to just drop the idea that I'm trying to put a form to it. It's like, so going back to that energy of how you feel. And I'm taking, that brings me with one other thought about creativity. There's a little artistic art group that's once a week, and I tune into it once in a while. And the assignment was, one of them was to take 10 minutes a day and just stack your happiness onto all your memories from past and then project to the future, which I found really challenging, but so revealing for our conversation that we're having today about imagining the impossibilities, because I realized that, yes, I could remember favorite things, whether it was a meal or a visit or a event, however it goes in your mind and heart. But then I realized that a lot of times I would say, oh, not possible, can't do in the future. But when I started to broaden that out, I would start to translate into what still was possible. And then it started to become on a daily basis where I would start to cue into what, if like I had a candle lit, and instead of just a candle lit, I went, oh, that makes me feel so good. You know, so that energy.
Remembering the feelings. Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
to create a process.
Well, and Pisces is such a feeling sign, you know, it's just so, it feels everything. And, you know, there's, Suzie, you were talking about how it's been challenging. It was a very challenging last year. I mean, no one's going to dispute that, and still challenging for some. And there could be a sense of wanting to jump ahead and skip ahead to the good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so important to really just take this time. Like the Pisces energy is kind of like being in a balsamic phase where it's the end of the cycle. And so it's a dying away of the old and withdrawing inward and kind of like wrapping up the old and preparing for the new. And there can be a low energy or a sense of kind of wanting to cocoon. So just like be in it and allow yourself to rest and just to be, and kind of shore yourself up, because it has been a challenging year and it's been draining in a lot of ways. And so this is our time to really just rest and get ready for the new fun energies coming.
Yeah, and you know, it's like we spent so much time last year getting to the meat of who we really are, you know, as people. And one of the things, you know, because that's was difficult. One of the things that a lot of people neglected to realize was how much, well, I don't want to say a lot of people neglected, but many didn't realize how much that, how much more sensitive they became. You know, we were so isolated. We didn't realize that our heightened sensitivity, our sensitivities were getting heightened. We were following the moon cycles more closely because all of the stuff was stripped away from us, you know, and all of the distractions were stripped away. And so when we become more sensitive, we become more sensitive. And so, you know, other than the you know, the obvious challenge that we had with COVID, you know, people are feeling like there's a lot of folks that are experiencing like that drain in energy. When you become more sensitive, you become more sensitive to your environment, to the foods you eat, to the, you know, the everything around you. You know, the sheets you're sleeping on, the chair you're sitting in, you know, and so paying attention to that now is really important, because, you know, we need to know how, you know, we're navigating into this different space and our energy has shifted. And so how we, you know, it's not just about getting out and being around other people and figuring out like personal boundaries again. You know, it really is. It's like we're not showing up as the same. We're really not. And I get that we all evolve. I mean, every human is evolving every day of, you know, their entire existence. But this was like a concentrated shutdown, deal with your crap, and then come on out and see what you got. And it's like, you know.
Oh, wow.
Right?
What a reset button. I think we're all just reflecting that yin part of sensing that truth. It is so true, because the moment one understands, that's where the past and present convene, right? Or past and future, right? For the moment. But you're absolutely right, because I've often thought of ancients who, with their mythology and looked at the stars and saw so much and the lack of distraction, but it was more a headspace. How often can we get into that space? But here we are. Intriguing.
Yeah. Well, and with all of the, we had that big shift from going from all that Capricorn energy into Aquarius, which definitely lighten things up, but it also is that, we've talked about this before, it's that energy of trauma. And so we're still like, we've been in like such a holding pattern of just getting through this pandemic. And now there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And so we can kind of release a little bit of that, that trauma that we all kind of went through. So extra important to just, you know, be gentle with yourself right now and have compassion with yourself.
Good point. And as we wrap this up, because we have in a minute a little break, but I'm realizing the thread the two of you are bringing together, that if we are in the moment, an extended moment of consistency, you know, looking at what is rather than distracted with all these energetics of to do in the future because you got to go somewhere, and the transportation, just immediate time. And that there's a shock, because I think of trauma, I really always think of this Aquarian shock factor of too sudden of changes. Yeah. Well, the sudden change was like getting connected to oneself, one's authenticity. And that can be somewhat of a trauma when you see the disconnect between what is authentic and what you're living. So it's all this beautiful blend that is like this percolating soup that sometimes it's like, do we remake the pot with less spices, or do we just add more spices and make it more edible? I don't know.
I want to get more spicy.
All right, cayenne. All right, well, this has been wonderful. It's Cosmic Collaboration Panel with Amanda Pierce, myself, Suzie Minahan, and Suzie Kerr Wright. So we'll be back. This is the 14th, Sunday. Yes.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Pisces, ruled modernly by Neptune and by Jupiter in traditional astrology of the ancients. By leaving a cycle based on the equality of all humans and brilliancy, Pisces concludes the 12 signs that energetically encompass the entirety of the universe, where humans have no control. As a mutable water sign represented by two fish swimming in opposite directions of the forces of life, we experience in Pisces the collective unconscious energy of the unknown. Intuitive, psychic Pisces completes the seed cycle, initiated with Aries' willful separation from the Piscean womb.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Ciao and greetings to all you folks out there that have got enough curiosity to tune in to what's going on here. My name is Jeff Peters. I am the Lively Astrologer, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM. Where we unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our consciousness.
Alternative Talk 1150, online at 1150kknw.com.
Hi again. Well, we are continuing on this quest of transcending from the known to the unknown, or the unknown to the known. It's really, we're transcending. And I'm with the members of Cosmic Collaboration for Pisces, and that is Amanda Pierce from the West Coast in Seattle. I'm happen to be Suzie Minahan in Hawaii on the Big Island, and Suzie Kerr Wright is in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. Boy, I'm mixing everything up. Anyway,
You're right
here
with the times, Sue.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying. Yes, recentering. Well, we had some questions that we were thinking about earlier, and perhaps now is a good time as we're learning this authenticity with ourselves that we mentioned about living in the moment, the now, which perhaps forced because our distractions, as Suzie was reiterating, are like no longer separating us from what is in our life. So what contracts does our soul have? If we go into this Piscean concept that of us as a spirit incarnated, because Pisces does connect with the spirit, the mystic, the spirituality of life, and it is the music, is famously involved. It transcends and the metaphors and this. But what isn't working with our relationships? What are the soul contracts? If that spurs some thoughts as we, with this, and to recap, we have Venus in Pisces, Mars has just entered. So it's a very compassionate, receptive time that we're experiencing.
Well, yeah, Mars in evolutionary astrology is considered the leading edge of the soul's evolution. So it's the conscious driver of Pluto and the unconscious soul. So it's instinctively acting upon the desires emanating from the soul. So I don't know how that necessarily relates to karmic contracts, but I assume that it could potentially be working with that. But what I really like about Mars is now that it has gone into Gemini, it's really lightening up some of that energy and allowing for us to be more fluid mentally. Like, it's been in Taurus, which has been Taurus so great at holding its ground. But, and sometimes in that holding, we're not able to take in new information. And so Gemini is allowing for that. And tomorrow, actually, it will be ruled by Mercury in Pisces. So it's again kind of going back to that Pisces energy and that fluidity and back to that principle of yang follows yin. So we're in this time of stepping deeper into our yin and being more in stillness and dreaming more and imagining more. And then the more we're able to do that in a yin way with the Venus energies, the more Mars will be able to kind of guide us to seeing connections that will help us move forward and help our soul move forward.
Interesting.
You say it so well. That's yes, my sweetheart. Yes, go ahead.
One of the things, it was a couple of things that jumped out. I'm not sure how to quite make the connection, but I have some ideas. I was noticing something. I'm very intuitive with the astrology work I do. So I kind of just like look at a chart and I'll be like, just talk to me, just show me, what's here. And I keyed in on Chiron at 8 degrees of Aries, and I kind of got stuck on, well, what's the Sabian symbol for that right now?
Oh.
And it's a crystal gazer. And I thought, wow, because Sue, and it hit me because Sue, you were talking about the reconciling the past and moving into the present and like kind of bringing all that together. I was like, wow, we're coming into this time, or in this time where we kind of we're getting glimpses of our future. We're getting them. We just may not know that we're getting them. They're not really obscured because nothing's ever really hidden from us. There's always signs and arrows and things pointing, saying it's here, it's here, it's here. clear, whether it's something we have to work on or whatever it is. There's like big flashing signs, and we just go, no, but it's not hidden from us. So I feel like we have, in this dreaming and imagining and allowing ourselves to be those creative people, the creative people that, the creative humans that we're meant to be more, or that, we've lost touch with over the years, or believed was wrong or whatever, this is a chance for us to all be kind of like the fortune tellers for our own lives, And the other piece that kind of stuck out for me, and it all really kind of comes back to Mars too, because, obviously it's Chiron and Aries, ruled by Mars. But another thing that that struck me was Neptune being in its last decan now, which is Scorpio. And yeah, think of the destruction,
Purging, transformation.
And really going deeper within too.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And to be the architect of your life, and to be the, like you were saying earlier, Amanda, law of attraction, it's always working whether you believe in it or not. You're always creating. And so this is really, it's such a profound time on so many levels, and nothing is happening by itself. It's all connected, and we're all connected. And, and I feel like a lot of what we're seeing out there in the world, that division, and that, it is, with Pisces, one of the things, and that 12th house stuff and Neptune and all of that, is it's where we learn to merge with others without losing our own identity, ideally, right? But what happens a lot, we merge too much. We lose our sense of self when we're in relationships, in those kind of, those types of relationships. And so, and then there's different options that we have. We can surrender to it. We can work on changing it, or we can completely rebel against it and, put up walls and barriers and boundaries that are not really, that are not healthy, And so, and you'd be more able to speak on this, Amanda, being, having a degree in psychology. I love it. but yeah, so I mean, it's, what we're seeing is the outer manifestation of people's reaction to meeting themselves, is that's kind of my summary of all of this.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought up the Sabian symbol for Chiron. I didn't know that. What I did find was that there will be a Sun, Venus, Chiron conjunction happening March 27th, 28th. And so I believe that's going to be at about 8 degrees. So this could be, after all of this Pisces energy that we're moving through, when the Sun and Venus finally move into Aries, they're going to join Chiron, and there can be a piece of healing that and finding ourselves in a greater way, more kind of who we more instinctually are, potentially, in that Aries energy.
What I like is that this breeds, you could say, faith, because it is part of the Piscean energy, is to have faith. And it's the intellect can, the North Node is in Gemini. On any means, it can kind of block that because it wants a linear. Gemini seeks the spirit and the connection between spirit and matter. The twins, just in mythology, one dies, one's mortal, one's immortal. That's the whole theme. But yet it still, I think, has this linear path a little bit. It's like, so it can block that idea of faith, and it's such the blind faith versus the experiment. How do you say the word? Experiential, or in other words, it's experiencing it all the time. Thank you.
Experiential.
Yes, experiential. Thank you. Language and Sue. So, yeah. Because faith, what you're saying is to have the faith that we are becoming, well, you see the signs. That's absolutely right. If we're sensitive to it, we can notice how these changes are happening and to have faith of
Yeah.
going forward.
Well, and Venus is the esoteric ruler of Pisces. So Venus rules 3 signs. It rules Taurus, which is about your relationship with yourself. It rules Libra, which is about your relationship with others. And it rules Pisces, which is about your relationship with Source or the great beyond, whatever you want to call it. And so with Venus in Pisces, it's about partnering with that energy and kind of allowing Source to take the lead in that partnership, which is all about that trust and that faith and allowing yourself to kind of surrender to it. So I think that fits in what you're saying.
I mean, that just sounds like such a beautiful way forward. It's just like that's
such a good foundation, right, for where we're moving towards with the rebirth in spring.
So going back, all of this is magnificently expressed, and I'm realizing, like, okay, what are we completing? That was one of the questions that stood out in the sense of on a soul, for our soul. And we can understand more the contracts that we have. And maybe if we don't know what the future entails, that's a big maybe, because of course we don't, in some ways, if we're really working with future, there's going to introduce ideas that we're navigating to introduce into our worlds. But the point, getting back to completing and soul contracts, that whole energy of
this is that Piscean energy of the balsamic phase where we're completing things and we're wrapping things up so that we can step forward into the Aries energy with less baggage, really, to
Yay!
hold us back. Yeah. And that Sun Venus Chiron conjunction, that can be a real healing energy in terms of that rebirth. And sometimes that can be painful, but it can be more of like a homeopathic release that's necessary. Sometimes we gotta feel the pain to allow it to release from us in order to move forward.
And going back to, I suddenly realized 8 degrees, because you were mentioning about Chiron and this healing energy that's connected with the Sun and Venus around the 27th, 28th of March, a couple of weeks from now. And the fact that it is 8 degrees, it's in a cardinal sign. So anybody that has early degrees of cardinal signs, that would be Libra, Capricorn, and cardinal, help me here, Cancer. Yeah, Cancer, of course. Yeah, right. That very personal one, right? Yes, are going to be especially motivated, and either through, depending on the aspect, whether it's opposition of awareness, which would be with Libra, of their partnerships, how the self is, because Chiron in Aries is all about identity. The United States has our Chiron at 20 degrees, which we're slowly progressing because it's a long orbit. It's very elliptical orbit. And so it's a long time in Aries, where it's a very short time in Libra. So it won't perfect, as we say, as a conjunction for several years. But it's that, is it okay to be me? Is it okay to have my own identity? And the United States really, one basis is how they came into this country, forming the nation, was they each wanted to, on some terms, live the life that they thought was okay. But it's always that struggle in a way, which is a peculiar thing in one way, but maybe the glory of it. So,
and kind of defining what your identity is, and Yeah, go ahead, Suzie.
No, I was gonna say it's actually I just ran it through Solar Fire. It's the 28th is when it's going to be exact. All three of them at
Okay.
8 degrees Aries with
Oh,
that
wow.
crystal gazer Sabian symbol. That is so cool.
I love that imagery. Yeah.
And and it really is. I mean, like you were saying, Sue, it's about one of the things one of the things that people that well, I don't want to keep generalizing, but it's about overcompensating. Where have we been overcompensating as humans? And of course, with the country having that same placement, healing from that need to overcompensate, to overdo. We are the country of over flipping doing it. I mean, we really are. We rock, but we overdo everything. I mean, it's like nothing can just be. It has to be overdone by Americans. So, maybe there's some healing around that can happen for us, individually and collectively.
Energetically, I'm realizing our ascendant is, if you go with a Sibley chart at 5:10 p.m., just for our audience sake, July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia, we have a 12-degree Sagittarius rising.
That's
by
my
Jupiter.
rising.
Yeah.
That's my rising.
So really, it's like, beyond expanding to new horizons, which can be, and compensation, we can be overcoming. So, really that fire to fire, that trine energy might help support that healing process. Plus it's sextile, that's a connective for people, a 60-degree energy to our natal Mars. I think our natal Mars is in Gemini, early Gemini. It's like, is it 8 Gemini? It might be 8
I
or
can
6.
look it up here.
It might be 6 Gemini. But I'm so in tune with this USA chart for a number of reasons. But one of them is that we're getting our Pluto return next year. And so everything happening is such a integral part about, going back to Pluto, that we're in the last decan, you said, because and decan for our audience is like, if you take 30 degrees, they're the first 10, the second 10, the third 10, and depending on what sign the planet's in. So at any rate, it's in Scorpio. That's the last of the water signs. So that's Pluto ruled, and you could say co-ruler with Mars. Well, I could say because evolutionary astrology. Yes, go ahead.
I mean, we've been seeing it, all of that shadow material coming forward for the U.S. with the Pluto return coming up, and so there is a need for us to really look at our identity. Who are we as a nation, and what do we want to be? And do we want to kind of redefine that and rebirth that, really?
Now, going back, unless somebody has something real quick, I'm realizing, because every time I see you, Suzie, I think to myself, okay, the eclipse in 2017, and it's an interesting, this is not an eclipse conversation, yet it is a transformational event. And it is interesting to think of the longevity of an eclipse. It went right over Nashville. So, and of course, Amanda, you and I happened to see that together. I mean, we were in the same area. We saw it at the moment independently, but we were connected. So, oh my goodness. Well, I think
Suzie got to see that too, given that she lives in Nashville.
I did. It was so amazing.
Right at home.
God. Loved it.
You didn't have to go anywhere. Like we traveled to Idaho. Yeah, we had to go somewhere. So
yep, right from my backyard.
So going back, maybe that's another key here, just to look at like what signs, because everything is immediate. Everything does give a signature of the moment. If we can just look at it in a well, I want to say positive, but in a constructive, in the truthful manner. So a crystal ball at this moment here, like Suzie, for that, just talking about that relationship of awareness was right at home. Whereas for Amanda and me, we had to go at a distance in order to find it. So here we are now, all in our own spaces, looking at potentially our crystal ball ahead of us. I mean, it's an orb of how to act because Aries is a separation. I mean, we're in this womb now, but we're moving towards some future development of something that will become known. And
something's coming.
yeah. So we may as well go back. Now is a time. Thank you. Now is a time to return to the yin. Okay, because we do have to draw this conversation in a collective manner, and it with all this mutable energy, it is easy to, even though we're not physically going somewhere in our headspace, to get overreach. Going back to that.
Yeah, Mars and Gemini, especially ruled by Mercury in Pisces, can be a little distracted, a little bit, a little hard to kind of pin down. So just flow with it. That's what I would say. Allow yourself to
it's gathering. Yeah, it's gathering all the dewdrops.
Gathering information
to make,
at this
like
point.
I might say, what comes to my mind, gathering the dewdrops to make a new sarong of colors and descriptions of what you see. I mean, that's very visually creative, perhaps, but in a sense, like, how are you going to wear that? What does the moment want to bring?
Yeah. And I like how Suzie mentioned daydreaming, how that's not necessarily a bad thing. If your mind is wandering right now, kind of allow it to a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, because, again, it's like we've been on this this wild ride. And when you I've been really like I'm thinking of all these like carnival rides and things. I belong to these groups of like amusement parks and things I used to go to when I was a kid. And there was one that I was thinking of. It was called the Whip, and
oh boy,
it went around, and the car was on an arm, and it would pivot really fast every time it would come around the turn. It's like, we've been on this whip, and so this kind of mind-numbing one thing after another, and so I mean, it really is like proceeding forward. We have, I guess what I would say to kind of sum up my thoughts on it is, we have all the tools we need now to move forward in our lives. We always have, but we've never been more awake and aware as humans. We use the term woke is thrown around, and it has, it has negative connotations or whatever, but if you think about just the terminology that gets thrown around in our world, there's always that astrological truth to it, or that positive, energy behind it. And we are awake. And so we don't have to walk through life blindly anymore, at least the vast majority of us. And so if we just keep remembering that we came here with that soul contract of like, we're here to do something, we are here to, and it's not about going out and doing something like, finding this right job that may be part of it, or this right relationship or whatever, but we're here to hold the space, I guess is a better way to put it, for what our existence is. Just us. We are enough.
Just yes.
As we are.
Thank you.
And if we can hold on to that as we get back out there in the world, or just keep navigating through whatever's going to be thrown at us, that's really where we can find the peace.
Thank you. This beautifully closes our whole talk. We have just, because today actually closes the third season of Talk Cosmos. It started in 2018 in Aries, and next week will be the igniting Aries and our fourth season. And for that talk, we'll be discussing the Venus star point that will be in Aries. It'll be the second to the last one over its 100th year cycle. And coming in for that conversation will be Jeff Gronlund and Ray Sapp and Petra Tauscher. They've all been on the show before. And it'll be very exciting as we continue into this new world for Talk Cosmos that keeps shifting and changing. Here we are on YouTube. But this idea of holding space, awareness, awakeness, we're awake. Oh, thank you. From yang to yin, inside, yes, catalyst, the gazer. Just little bullet thoughts. Thank you, Suzie. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you both.
Guys, thank you both.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.